22 Green Valley Lakes, which is across the road, is now benefiting from a buffer on lot 25 of 20 feet. It seems absurd to me.
Right, and let me just stop you there. Gary, can we pull that up, because that was something that on documents from our previous public hearing, or the first meeting of our last meeting, there was not a vegetated strip there, and that tonight we've got an additional vegetated strip, and I just want to make sure everybody understands where it is and its intent and purpose. And for the commission members, I'm on drawing number 10, which is a decent zoom in of the connection of the new proposed road to Green Valley Lakes Road, at the center of which is 27 Green Valley Lakes Road, which presently has a 40-foot landscape buffer on the south side, on the lot 1 side, and we're looking at across the street, across the proposed new road from 27 Green Valley Lakes Road, which is lots 23 and 24. Lot 24 has the 20-foot no-cut landscape buffer along Green Valley Lakes Road.
Right, and as Joe Wren aptly pointed out, this is going above and beyond. They don't have to do this. And this is actually a property that's on the opposite side of the street, much like Mr. Lepowski's or 27 Green Valley Lakes. So I submit that, Brian, he's a lifelong resident. He chose to build his house here, and I know last time he said under no circumstances did he think that anything was going up there from someone here in the town planning or whomever. He chose to build here. He has a business here. I mean, I think to not provide him or require that either there be a buffer or move the road, or to have this commission not address that very issue sends a really bad message to everyone else in town. So, yeah, I think if the purpose of one of the purposes to stabilize and conserve home values and property values by not requiring what you guys can implement, a buffer of some sort, and or having them move the road, is just trampling over Mr. Lepowski's rights. And again, it sends a bad message to everyone else in this town. As far as the development itself, it's not consistent with the existing development. I did some amateur surveying on GIS. On average, all of our properties are from 60 to 130 feet from the road. I know the CDD provides a setback of 10 feet. Considering all the other potential issues with adding septic, upland review, 100-foot wetlands, I mean, these houses are at best probably going to be half that from the road, maybe 30 feet. I don't know. I'm sure Joe can opine as to that. And again, the road thing, I mean, it's not consistent with the neighborhood. The small curb cut that's currently there, I think is 30 feet. And I don't know when that was put there. It could have been 30, 40 years ago. It's not 24 feet. And again, I think that has everything to do with the CDD plan and minimizing impervious surfaces. But at the end of the day, it's not consistent. It's not. And as far as the CDD design, I don't think the intent of the CDD, and I know we have someone here that was here during its inception and crafted it. I don't think the intent of it is fully realized with this project. I mean, frankly, I'd like to think that the intent of the CDD was to actually preserve natural resources with an eye and focus on conservation, as opposed to creating a project that fits within the confines of the CDD. If you look at the traditional or conventional plan that they came up with, it tramples all over the wetlands. It's actually quite remarkable. So I think using the CDD as a shield or to circumvent the obvious challenges they have with the conventional plan is not consistent with its intent. A couple more issues. I know there's a regulation about contiguous open space and that you want to promote as much as you can. I suppose if you get rid of lots 10 through 13, you can do that, because there's a little parcel of wetland and up there and down here. I think, part of this commission's job is to ensure the safety, or promote safety and.
I just want to stop you just because
Yeah.
I'm running along to keep up with you. And the lots 10, 11, 12, and 13 are along the cul-de-sac facing the 4 Mile River, just for the record.
Right, thank you. And I think this commission's concern with regard to the cul-de-sac in the town officials or the fire marshal is very important. I know there's discussion that, well, your regulations require that there be the center island or cul-de-sac. I didn't read that. But frankly, it seems rather ridiculous to the extent there are other officials of this town indicating a clear and present danger with regard to these cul-de-sacs. And I think the solution of providing a handout or a template to show the fire department that they can essentially perform a K-turn in a cul-de-sac or navigate it is laughable. But anyway. Traffic, I was surprised to learn that 70% comes down Green Valley Lakes Road. That's the road I live on. As a personal aside, I have 2 small children. The prospect of cement mixers, land movers, contractors, whomever for the next, God knows how long, doesn't sit well with me. I have been there for some development, and I can tell you that those dump trucks come barreling down that street with a lot of the new houses that have gone up in recent years. And there is continuous traffic, and it's a concern. To the extent part of this commission's duty is to ensure the safety, I would think that allowing a development in this nature is in dereliction or contradictory to part of your purpose, which is to ensure the safety or prevent dangers from occurring. I know that's a stretch, but your purpose is to ensure safety. So not approving this plan would do that in some fashion. And one last thing, I know, this commission is free to reject evidence, assess the credibility of witnesses of the evidence. I know the applicant, there's the owner, and Joe Wren's doing a masterful job. I'm just curious because I know he's a real estate agent, whether or not he has any interest or plans to have any interest in listing any of his lots under his license or under his realty company. I know Lisa Bernard's in back, but I think she's actually selling the lot now, the big lot. So I'm just curious. I'm sure the commission would like to know too.
Do the commission members want to ask that question?
Say that again.
Does anyone on the commission want to ask Mr. Wren if he?
Had no bearing on the subdivision regulations. The application meets the regs for who's selling lots.
I can also add that I'm getting paid to do the engineer plans too, so regardless of real estate or engineering.
And I think the commission should take that response as a non-response. I mean, you can answer or not. I think it does go to reliability and credibility to the extent Joe Wren's an expert. You're certainly you're allowed to assess the credibility of witnesses. He's an expert witness. To the extent he has any financial interest in the outcome of this project beyond being an engineer, you're certainly entitled and free to ask that. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to take a moment to read a regulation that was just referenced, 6-10-14, not to be confused with 6-10-11, which is if you read the item on our agenda, this is a application for a re-subdivision with a waiver request from 6-10-11. We just referenced 6-10-14. It's 2 sentences that I'm just going to read for the benefit of the public hearing. Where a new town road is proposed adjacent to an existing lot, the Planning Commission may require up to a 50-foot vegetated buffer to screen the new road from the existing lot. This requirement shall not apply to a re-subdivision where the original subdivision plan showed a future road. So, those are the exact words. Let's continue. Do we have any other members of the public who would like to,
Can I just respond back to the real estate?
naturally?
Bob Fusari, applicant. As of right now, I have not hired an agent to sell this property. Cola Banker was a listing agent originally, and I'll probably go with Lisa Bernard if I do go with anybody.
Thank you.
Would you like us to respond to the other points now, or wait till later?
We can wait till later and catch them all at once. I'd like to give the public the forum for,
No problem. The first time we rebutted it right away, so that's fine.
do we have any other members of the public who would like to speak to the record tonight? Very well. So we'll do yourself, and then the man in the striped shirt, and then the man in the blue shirt. That's okay?
Good evening. My name is Craig Grimord. I'm representing the Niantic Sportsman's Club, which is the abutting property to the east of this proposed development. And I have a couple questions that I'd like to ask the commission members and a couple requests. My first question is, currently the plan shows a large open space that'll be abutting our property, the Niantic Sportsman's Club. I just don't know if the town has a requirement that the open space boundaries be placated or delineated in the field so that people know where the limits of the open space is. Is there a requirement for the town to do that?
There's no requirement per se for the town to do it per the regulation, but it's certainly something that the commission could condition. We do, through the wetland agency, they have placards to identify the regulated areas. Certainly the planning commission could require similar, identifying the open space that's needed.
Okay, I was curious because our boundary is not very well marked, even though we know it's the top of the ridge, but it wavers a little bit, and we're gonna post our property as best we can to delineate it, where the property line is.
So just for context, this is
Yeah.
the parcel that split the Como,
Yeah.
three.
Yeah, we own those three, yeah, that's right. But that farthest line to the west there is the line that abuts this proposed development.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't the Sportsman's Club have property next to the Samuel Smith House across the...
Yes, we own that also, yeah. All around the Smith House. We purchased that only a few years ago. Yeah. The Sportsman Club has a request of the applicant. We know it's not a requirement of him, but we would like to see on any approved plans that come, if this project is approved, any place on the plans where the Niantic Sportsman's Club property is shown, that a note be put on it, and I'll hand these out as an exhibit. We request that a note be put on the plans that says, the Niantic Sportsman's Club, in parentheses, established in 1955, is an abutting property owner to this subdivision. Shooting hours are from 9 a.m. to dusk, daily. We had significant problems with the earlier Spring Rock development. When they went in, new houses started going in. We were in a $1 million lawsuit over our activities, which were perfectly legal. But it cost us $1 million to defend ourselves. We'd like to avoid doing that again if possible. With the new owners of these new lots, should it be approved. We'd also ask that the Planning Commission require that their staff, when reviewing and approving the individual lot developments and issuing COs, they also include that note with the COs. So that basically we're trying to prevent a future lawsuit, and we want the buyers to be aware. We are there, we're not going anywhere, and we shoot daily from 9 a.m. to dusk. And that's something they have to consider when they're buying these lots. So Gary, I need 6 copies, I know that's not enough. Yeah, that's just,
No, certainly, we are very concerned with expectations. And having the right expectations for this subdivision includes things like noise.
Yeah.
That travels, and the town has recently adopted an ordinance about sound in town, and so certainly I appreciate your advocacy for that issue, and we'll make a final determination later, but I can tell you right now, I'm in favor of what you've proposed.
And that's all we have, but we're just trying to protect our interests, and the proposal as it's designed is pretty much protects us, because it's a large area of open space between the ridge that goes down steep slopes and the large area of open space, wetlands and everything, but there will be development of the lots eventually, if it's approved. There'll be kids, they'll be wandering around. The parents will need to remind them that we're there, and it could be dangerous for them to cross those lines if they don't know what they're doing. So, like I said, we will post our property the best we can up there, make it known that we're there, but we'd like it to protect ourselves in any way possible.
Yeah, to have them
Great, great
aware of
point.
it as soon as possible,
Yeah.
even when they're looking at the
Exactly.
deed or looking at, yeah.
You know, and they're going to build a house. They may decide they don't want to listen to the background noise, especially on the weekends when there's a lot of skeet shooting going on.
Is your property fenced?
No.
I mean, no?
We have over 300 acres. It'd be
No, I mean, on the border.
No, it's fenced down along Bridebrook Road, but that our western border it's a very steep ledge. I mean, it
Okay.
drops off, you can look down between your knees to see the ground. Once you're up on top of that ledge, it drops off that quickly. That's why it's protected as open space, because of the steep slopes there. And I think that's also where the natural diversity database said there might be some
Right.
plants or something on those ledges that they want to keep protected. But that's all I have, and I just wanted to make the commission aware of that, and hopefully any future owners.
Thank you, that's
Thank
a
you. Great
edge
point.
of the parcel that we haven't looked closely at, and I very
Right.
much appreciate it.
Okay.
My name is Harvey Beeman, and I'm at 11 Green Valley Lakes Road. And reviewing some of the information, there's an application for waiver regarding a secondary road to the 25-lot subdivision. And it argues in the waiver that although it does not serve in excess of 20 lots, it does rather serve in excess of 20 lots. They're providing an emergency access road. My question to the commission is, how is it an emergency access road if it intersects the road between lots 3 and 19? If something were to happen just beyond that, you would not be able to get to the cul-de-sac area. So that's one concern, and part of the argument in that they comply with other portions of the regulation argues that the wetlands increase in close proximity of wetlands and increased disturbance, which would be required to construct an alternate access, creates a hardship. To me, the only hardship is that you're trying to put 25 house lots, when if you went with 20 or less, you wouldn't have that issue. You would not need the variance, the waiver rather. My next point was something I heard tonight in the archaeological report. There was discussion about 2 dams, a breach dam, and then some obstruction at the end, and I think it was the south end of.
I believe the south end is the earthen dam that was breached, and on the northern end, they indicated maybe beavers or some sort of natural.
I want to make it clear, it is an active beaver dam. We provided photos and description of activity there to the Wetlands Commission about a month ago. So that is clearly a beaver dam. The other question or comment regards the traffic flow. We heard from the traffic engineer that getting out of the driveway onto Green Valley Lake or Spring Rock Road would not take any more time. However, I did not hear a discussion of how much longer it might take up at 4 Mile River Road. And coming off of 4 Mile River Road, our house is the second house in East Lyme on the right-hand side, and I can tell you cars come down pretty fast, and turning into the driveway already is a hazard in that area. Haven't had an accident there fortunately, but they do come down pretty rapidly off of 4 Mile River Road onto Green Valley Lake. And in that area, there is Lot 25, and I have not heard any discussion about Lot 25 access improvements. The whole discussion has been at the other end of Green Valley Lake Road for 25 lots. There has been no discussion of a traffic study at the intersection where Lot 25 hit Green Valley Lake or other utilities, water supply, any of that description going into that location. And I thought, maybe I heard tonight that Lot 25 was being made part of the open space. I could be wrong.
The northern portion of Lot 25 has been, the lot line has been moved south,
Right.
south of the cemetery and south of the wetlands, making the lot a little smaller. Is that correct?
So the lot would still be accessed
Correct.
off of Green Valley Lake Road.
Right, and I'm looking at it right here. The road that serves the 24 lots is unnamed. Is that correct?
It's Twin
Twin
Valley.
Valley Roads.
Okay. The cover sheet says Bayberry Lane serves lot 25. That's is that correct? Is that
That's correct.
okay. So that would be the that's what's notated as a Bayberry Lane unimproved road is accessing lot 25.
So would that have improvements, and would we need a traffic study for that location? That was all I had.
Thank you. Would you like to go next?
Correct. We're interveners, or will be in a moment. You want us to go now with the public, or?
Sure. Oh, well, is there anyone else present tonight that would like to speak as a member of the public? Maybe we'll just do, I mean, is that okay? Would you prefer to back clean up, or?
Yeah, well, we have a couple people.
Okay. Let's do you last, and we'll let these comments come in, and then we'll do interveners. Welcome, and please just state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, I'll be brief. David Dean. I'm at 3 Green Valley Lake Road, which is an old Lyme. So I'm curious about this Bayberry Lane because that's right on the town line. So is there an understanding with the town of Old Lyme who will pave and maintain and plow that road? And it's just strikes me as odd that you would develop a road to serve one lot. So it seems to me it's going to cost more to maintain than, revenue you'd get from having just one lot there. So unless, that lot looks like it's long enough to be potentially split up into, at some future date, into separate lots like the previous case you had there. So that could be a concern if those lots are going to get their water from wells, because the water supply in the ground is pretty bad up in the western side of the street there. So my house has a well, and we get enough water to support the household, but very little beyond that. And I had a well driller from East Lyme come in, and he said that whole end up in 4 Mile River Road up in the northern end of that is the groundwater is very poor there. So I think that's a consideration if there's any thought of adding additional lots along Bayberry Lane there in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other members of the public that would like to speak before we let the... Good evening, and please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Danny Pagano. I live at 14 Green Valley Lake Road. I've lived there for just over 10 years now, and I have 3 boys, 2 little ones, 7 and 8, and a 20-year-old. In the 10 years that we've been there, I've watched the residency change from the older generation moving out, younger families moving in with kids. On Green Valley, from the beginning of Old Lyme down to the corner, there are 20 homes. 8 of those have kids in them that live there. There's roughly 15 children in that span of Green Valley. My biggest concern, my wife's concern, and fellow neighbors is the traffic, the speeds. Adding 25 more homes, 40, 50 more cars, what time of the day they go through, who knows? 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening, but it's all day long. Weekends, I'm out cutting my grass. For 10 years, I'd say I'm an expert on what goes on there. You spoke of an accident that happened there 4 or 5 years ago. It was a late evening accident and happened in between my house and 16, where the car came from Spring Rock down Green Valley real fast, around the bend where Frog Hollow is, went up over onto the yard of 16, just missed a big red oak through the bushes, cut back across the road, went over to 13, missed their mailbox, and took off. Thank God it was in the evening, 9 o'clock-ish. No kids were out. But if that was during the day, who knows what could have happened. So my concern is you're adding more traffic on this road of Green Valley. Got nothing to do with the new development. Also have noticed over the years when there is an accident on 95, which happens frequently, it seems lately, the highway gets shut down. Everybody has to get off 71. They cut through the development, trying to get to Route 1 quicker than sticking on 4 Mile that's backed up now too. Cars come through. Doesn't happen a lot, but I'd say a few times a year we're dealing with that. Today alone, when I got home, I took a ride through the whole development, all the streets. And I took my little one with me, and we counted the speed limit signs in the development. Speed limit is 25. On Green Valley Lake Road, there's not one speed limit sign, no direction. On Spring Rock, heading north going to Route 1, there are 3 different locations. Coming off of Route 1 onto Spring Rock, there's one at the beginning, nothing else the rest of the way of Spring Rock down to the corner where Green Valley is. And then on Overbrook, Tanglewood, Frog Hollow, no speed limit signs posted. The only thing on Green Valley when you enter from 4 Mile, there's a caution children sign at the top, and then another caution children sign right at the East Lyme border. Coming down that hill from the top of Green Valley off of 4 Mile, it comes down on a hill. I put my truck in neutral as soon as I made the turn. By the time I got to the bottom of my hill, right where my house is, not using gas or brake, just let my truck roll, I got up to 35 miles an hour. No speed bumps, there's nothing in the road. I just coasted, and my truck got up to that with no acceleration. Concern, it is a hill that comes down and turns. It's blind spots. So, no speed limit sign posted. Yes, the majority of people that go through there are our fellow neighbors. I have confronted one in the past, years ago. I had come on to Green Valley. I'm going slow. My foot's on the brake because I don't want to go too fast. He decides to go right around me and takes off. Now, I got 2 little kids that are outside playing maybe with my wife down there. I followed him to his house, and I confronted him at his driveway by his mailbox of why he was driving like that through the neighborhood. He thought I stopped. I guess he didn't see my brake lights. I was just going slow enough that I wouldn't accelerate going down a hill past the speed limit of 25, which is what it's not posted, but it's what it is through the development. I don't think we should police our neighbors. Are we going to call the cops every time something's going to happen like this? And if this is what's going to take to make things safer, if that's what we have to do, it's not how I want to live with my neighbors, to start confronting them and getting that way. But yes, safety is a big concern. 25 more houses. How many more kids are going to be in there? That's a dead end, but Green Valley is the traffic flow. It's like living on Route 1 is going to become. A lot of traffic, a lot of cars. Too many kids around there. Safety. There was also, I took a note, when you were talking about with the wider roads, with the snow emergency, the vehicles. A couple years ago, we had bad snowstorm, blizzard. My neighbor across the street, they're probably late 70s, early 80s. The wife slipped and hit her head on the table. They had to call the EMTs and everybody come out. I'm outside doing my driveway. Next thing you know, a town truck comes and they're trying to plow the driveway. Next thing I know, 2 fire trucks come. They come out with their shovels. They're trying to clear a path. The road wasn't plowed all the way because the road is plowed just enough to get one car through either direction. Yes, later on during the storms, they come and they're going wider and wider when they plow to the curb. But that's hours after the storm has already started or accumulated. It took, I would say, 4 or 5 EMT, firemen, everybody with shovels to try and get a path so the ambulance can get in to get the woman out to the hospital. So when you're discussing about the 24-foot wide roads and how they're going to be plowed and all that, I've seen it happen on the 30-foot wide road. It's not wide enough at that time for storm vehicles to be there. This is just, like I said, living there for the 10, 11 years, taking observations, being involved in my neighborhood of what's going on all the time. Deer, in the past 2 weeks, I've seen deers during the daytime just walking the street, walking across yards. Car comes down, he's going to get hit. It's not the deer's fault, it's not the guy's fault. I mean, the car's fault is speeding. So, and I think that's about it for me. But yeah, just the traffic. I think 25 more houses. It's going to be too much. Too many more vehicles. Kid safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to set expectations, the time is about 10 after 10 now. We started at 7, so we're due for a second comfort break if we need an encore of that. Just, do any commission members want to call for a break?
Right, before you start the meeting.
Or ex officio members have anything? Yeah.
Meetings are supposed to be over at 10:30.
Okay. Good to know that before we, I don't want to cut anybody off. We are,
You want to explain why? No, it's because the cleaning service starts at 10:30.
No, it does. What's
Yeah, that's why.
It ends at,
Oh, it ends at 10:30. I thought they started at 10:30. Oh.
I just wanted to set expectations here.
No, it's in your packet.
I handed it to you.
We are already continued until our next meeting, so this public hearing is going to stay open. Mr. Salerno, does that mean we want to get through the rest of our agenda? We have a couple minutes to approve and things like that, so are you saying we should start?
And you still have Jack Torrance you have to go through too.
I think in terms of the other items on the agenda, we can table that until next regular meeting, just minutes and reports.
We are deliberating on the other
We still have,
public hearing, aren't we?
We can start our deliberation. We have 65 days to make a decision on that, so we have ample time to discuss that.
So we can table that, we can table the minutes. And we,
I would recommend, so I would proceed forward.
Should,
yes, I'm sympathetic to the fact that people got out of their house, they came here, they want to speak. We want to get through and give everyone a chance to speak with the constraints provided. We will be back here and conducting a public hearing.
We can conduct a special meeting. We can have 10 of them. We can have 2 hours long.
Do you have a preference of how you want to make your comments tonight? Do you want to be interrupted or?
Either way, I mean, I don't need to probably too much more than 15 minutes, but Mr. Trinkus is here. I don't know if you're gonna expect, if you want him as an expert here in the next hearing. imagine you probably would.
I would give a preference to anyone who's not going to be here at the next meeting or not sure that they can make it at the next meeting. Please speak tonight. We've got 15 minutes left to clear those priorities. I know, Mr. Wren, you want to reply to some bullet points that you've been collecting.
Yeah, do we know, are you gonna have a special meeting or are you regular schedule?
Presently, our next meeting is the first meeting in September.
When is it? September?
September 5th, first Tuesday.
Should-
Suggesting that you do a special meeting, I don't know when that would be, I'd have to find out.
Yeah,
the commission
everybody's
meeting,
schedules, yeah.
Things like that.
Well, you know you're going to the next meeting anyway.
We're going to at least September 5th right now, if not, something between.
It's up to the commission. I don't mind coming back and next time, I don't know.
I
Mr.
bet.
Trinkus, would you prefer to go now?
I'd actually prefer to go to a later date.
I would only prefer that they go now and speak so that the applicant can address those comments for the next meeting, should there be one. I mean, that's.
Looking out for that applicant there, Karen. No, I know what you're saying. As opposed to-
Whole public hearing completed,
Right.
all the information we possibly can, so we can render a decision, get it off the table.
Right.
That's really my goal here, is just. we gotta-
They had 2 hours to speak.
Well, excuse me. With respect to tonight's public hearing, we're going to wind this down. I don't think it's fair to apply any time constraints to your speakers. If you can be here and you can pick it up at the next one, I'm not going to compel them to condense their comments and fit it onto the record. That said, if you'd like to take a few minutes, you can get started. You can start to outline it. If you'd like to defer, and I can make you the first speaker at the public hearing when we continue it in September.
I'll get started as long as I can continue next time.
Very well.
Jason Westcott, I'm an attorney. I represent Brian Lepkowski, 27 Green Valley Lakes Road. I am filing an intervention petition under 22A-19. And attached to this, included with this petition, I also included just a couple of quotes from case law that talk about impermissible segmentation, which is looking at just a partial aspect of an application
Thank you.
or development as opposed to the entire one. So in the, on page, we have our list of items which are likely harms, unreasonable harms to the environment, to the state's trust that they hold the public resources in. On page 3, we just talked about, it's just saying it's recognized, I think, by a number of different treatises as well as in cases that it's best to analyze all the impacts in one application, rather than piecemeal this and have a property owner come back for a particular lot, try to determine, oh, is that a regulated activity, or is this going to be, does it need a separate permit? Is it going to, you're going to move, you know, the configuration on the lot completely at that time? It'd be better to get the lots proposed with, you know, average size houses so that you could actually, you know, analyze all the impacts, particularly things like, you know, stormwater flows, drainage, and other things on a site like this, which already has considerable existing surface water and groundwater. So there's a case, not a lot of case law on this, but there is a case from Judge Berger, who is the presiding land use judge in Hartford, where he quotes from other cases saying segmentation is defined, quote, as an attempt to circumvent the brackets, environmental protection laws by breaking up one project into smaller projects and not studying the overall impacts of the single overall project, end of quote. And segmentation is to be avoided in order to ensure that interrelated projects not be fractionalized. A project is properly segmented if it connects logical termini and is of sufficient length to address environmental matters of broad scope as independent utility or independent significance, and 3, will not restrict consideration of alternatives for other reasonably foreseeable transportation improvements. If you approve a road and just the general layout of lots, and then there's changes, either because some other agencies add different conditions, or potentially some people want major changes to how they want to develop the lots, it makes it impractical or almost impossible to analyze accurately the impacts. So it's just this way of proposing it here is not typical, and I think it keeps the agency from doing its proper job, which is trying to figure out, okay, what are the full impervious surfaces? What are the full stormwater runoffs? What is the appropriate erosion and control plan? Knowing, having an idea of where some of the houses will be located, some average square footage of houses, varying some of the driveways. I don't think it's realistic to believe that everyone is going to have their houses that close to the road, so that you would have something closer to a full analysis of the development.
Just so I'm clear on what you're describing, you're talking about there's a road of impervious surface, and then the distance of the individual houses, if they're close to the road, would amount to 25 short driveways, although the houses could easily flow towards the back of the lot, and you could end up with a significantly longer amount of impervious surface from the driveways.
Right. And additionally, also, you might vary the house sizes, so that it's not realistic that everyone's going to have the same roof size or the same garage or so. I think normally there's other information that fully developed, plans of a developed subdivision, which this one is so cookie cutter, you're not getting that accurate information. There's a number of couple things. It was, we were sure Brian was very happy to hear his neighbor stand up for him about, the buffer. I haven't done as much of this as some other, all of you have, but it's hard to imagine a more aggressive, basically, implementation of a plan from a neighbor, from an existing property owner's perspective. The the longest length of his lot is that side lot. The road is adjoining his house. It curves around his backyard. All the cars that are going to be coming down for a long, long stretch, exiting the subdivision, are going to be shining right into his backyard, back to his house, and then curving around, stopping at an intersection, and waiting for traffic to go out there. It's a cul-de-sac, so every car that's going in is going back out that way. So, you heard from the traffic expert, and we would. There's alternatives here, and I just want to quickly present. I have some maps here.
I just want to keep you on time here.
Yeah, I'll try to move quickly here because we would. This is a set of 5 pages. Okay, these are mostly deeds. Maps pulled from the clerk's office, and there are also 2 documents here from Plan of Conservation and Development. I think as you know, you might have known. I don't know if it's been noted, but the plan, your PCD calls for this as open space. Dedicated open space. It's in a number of different drawings where, for years, this was planned to be open space. It's called perceived open space. There's a couple of other documents on your plan of conservation and development, or in the plans that are listed on your subdivision webpage.
Thank you.
The first one here on the top is a 1975 map that shows basically an adaptation of the lot number, it's 301. It's at the bottom, if you're looking, if you have this map upright, and you're looking at 301 down here. That's now a new lot proposed here. But
So right under the word green in
right
Green
under
Valley.
Lakes Road, Mr. Lepkowski's lot is number 302.
Mhm.
And that regulation which talks about whether or not what road should be used to access a subdivision which had a pre-existing paper street, which this one does, you look and see what shows as a road. This prior map from 1975 does not show a road where the applicant is proposing to enter. The road is shown is Spring Rock Road, which comes down along the side of the subdivision, the easterly side, and cuts in 2 or 3 lots in. I mean, in terms of the impact immediately to the existing houses, obviously it's much less. It comes in on the side behind the other lots, not right along the lot. So I think that addresses immediately the question about whether there's an existing road where the applicant is proposing to enter, and there's not. There is a road, the Spring Rock Road, if you look at the second map, the second, it's this middle toned paper, it's 8.5 by 14. The second, you'll see the Spring Rock Road over here, and then it cuts over. There's no road again next to Mr. Lepkowski's parcel. And then if you go to the
This is
third
Lepkowski.
page, you'll see the Spring Rock Road comes right down to the edge here. So there's no road entering into the subdivision. And a number of different drawings, plans have Spring Rock Road entering into the subdivision a little further south. So in terms of just following your regulations, the road which is shown on prior maps of this proposed subdivision, and there was, original plans here, though they're not they don't go as far south as the applicant's proposing, but the prior sections showed Spring Rock Road entering into this parcel. And there's the road that actually, seems to be a pathway, is specifically cut off in the 1975 map, ending that use as a road, opting for the Spring Rock Road. So under your regulations, the Spring Rock Road is is really the entrance that the regulations say you follow.
So another way of saying that would be, instead of creating a T intersection on Green Valley Lakes Road, Spring Rock Road would be continued and extended.
Continued extended. It's existing out there. It's already shown on the map. You see it on the first one here. It's kind of there are some other maps I think that are in the applicant's plans that similarly show Spring Rock coming in across that way. If you look, I have it's just a simple, the fourth page, the first white 8.5 by 11 is a flood zone map. I put it in here just because it really is tough to get a sense of the width and the size of the flood zone on this particular parcel. If you look at the development site, not the 97 acres, but if you look at the development site of where the applicant's proposed to develop, it's probably maybe 30 acres. Because a large portion of this is wetlands, or they've included the 4 Mile River, the body of water, in the acreage. And a large chunk of this is flood zone. And to the extent that you pull this road up onto Spring Rock, it's much higher than the one that's where they're coming in right at the Green Valley Lakes, right close to the bridge there. It also might mean that some of the water gets routed differently. Mr. Trinkus has pointed out that there's 625 feet of road at a slow incline as you come into the subdivision. All that water for the first 625 feet is going to be directed back down the new road and into the storm drain right into 4 Mile River. So if the entrance came in through Spring Rock, you might be able to not only address some, concerns, impacts, direct impacts to Mr. Kowski, you might have less environmental problems, particularly the 4 Mile River, which, has been shown to be fairly clean, and people are interested in trying to keep it that way. And finally, you would be consistent with your regulations, which direct the use of a paper street shown on a prior map of the subdivision rather than creating a new one. Also, we're curious whether the traffic engineer got a chance to get a sense of the two different streets up there, and whether one of the entrances would be better safety-wise. Because
Yeah, please direct
Thank you.
comments to me, but
Right,
sorry.
so we can hear you at least.
Yeah. So we'd be curious if, while the traffic engineer is here, whether he formed an opinion as to whether they're a preferable entrance or onto Green Valley Lakes Road, either, where it's starting down the hill or up at Spring Rock, which is, you would be coming in at a T at the entrance to Green Valley Lakes Road as opposed to entering where traffic's already moving. I don't know if we could ask him.
I don't think we're going to do it now because we're running low on time, but certainly we'll record your question, and that'll be something the applicant will have a chance to respond to at our continued public hearing. Can I cut you off here?
Yes, just one final thing. On the 5th page here is the open space, which is in your plan of conservation and development. It does show this particular parcel to be within the planned open space. Your regulation says you shall follow the plan of conservation and development. It doesn't say you may. It does say shall. Now, there's probably some, people will say, well, that's directory, even though it says shall, but it's strong language. It does say, that's, your plan of conservation and development indicates this is open space. That's hard to say we're going to give it a full intensive development and try to put a house on every available lot. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for shortening your comments. You'll be first next time.
Thank you.
To the rest of the public, thank you for your courtesy and patience. It's 10:30, so the commission is going to continue to stay in the meeting. Do you have a question? Go ahead.
Just curious when so is the next meeting going to be Tuesday the 5th after Labor Day?
Yes. First Tuesday of the month is posted. Yep.
There's not going to be a meeting between now and then?
Presently, we don't have one scheduled, no.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you all. You're all free to leave. The commission's going to stay in session while we go through our agenda. Does anyone need a comfort break, or can we